Top performers aren't busier than you, they're just clearer. They know exactly what's worth doing and everything that isn't. If you're constantly busy and still not making real progress, while others around you are pulling ahead, this will explain exactly why and how to fix it. Now, I'm Rian Doris, founder and CEO of FlowState.com. We've trained everyone from Audi, Accenture, and the US Air Force to use neuroscience-based principles to access flow states at will. Now, back in Barcelona, I had a roommate, let's call him Alan, who ran his own business. Alan had one clear and urgent goal, which was to earn $250,000 a year to cover his expenses, pay rent, and regain financial stability. He was intelligent and he was obsessed with productivity. Every morning, Alan would do elaborate routines specifically designed to get him into flow state, fully concentrated, absorbed in his work. I would watch him work, and it became increasingly mind-boggling to me. Alan's mind didn't have the ability to link what he was working on in the moment to the outcome that he was trying to achieve. He would spend hours deep in flow, really pushing himself, staying laser focused on things that were never going to get him the result that he was after. And as his finances continued to drain, Alan continued to do the same, working on things that had no causal relationship to the goal. For example, Alan had several potential prospects he could have warmed up into clients who would sign contracts, but instead of following up with them, he'd spend entire days in flow state, redesigning his website or creating content, things that were completely unrelated to the goal. And I watched in awe as he mastered the art of getting into flow states, but completely missed the point of where to direct that powerful mental state. Alan's problem wasn't procrastination, it wasn't distraction. Alan was experiencing misallocated flow state. Misallocated flow state is the experience of being deeply focused, fully immersed in the zone, aimed at tasks that have no direct link to your goals. This is the danger of misallocated flow. Flow becomes fuel for going fast in the wrong direction. The reason my roommate Alan kept misallocating his flow was that he was extremely low on what we call the goal-directed spectrum. The goal-directed spectrum measures how precisely your moment-to-moment actions align with your long-term goals. In the middle of the spectrum, you have goals but frequently get pulled off course. If you're high on the spectrum, almost everything you do gets you closer to what you really want. Your actions are determined almost exclusively by your goals, regardless of what's happening around you. The higher you are on the goal-directed spectrum, the more your days serve your decades. Your moment-by-moment actions link to your long-term goals in the most effective, direct, and precise possible way. To see the different extremes of the goal-directed spectrum, consider this scenario. Let's say two founders both aim to grow their businesses to 7 figures by year's end. The first founder desperately wants that goal, but is low on the goal-directed spectrum. Instead of evaluating which actions directly lead to that outcome, they rewrite team structures, draft manifestos, and attend networking events that feel productive but don't move the number. The direct path, perhaps simply increasing lead volume by scaling up outreach, is right in front of them, but they can't see it. The goal-directed founder is different. Same goal, same urgency, but every decision runs through a critical filter. What moves me closer to that number faster than anything else that I could possibly do? They find the shortest path that drives the outcome. Now, it turns out where you fall on the goal-directed spectrum is underpinned by neuroscience. Researchers Bernard Balleen and John O'Doherty from the University of New South Wales and the California Institute of Technology have demonstrated that our brains have 2 different systems for controlling our actions. One system runs on stimulus response. It's fast, automatic, and built for energy conservation. See a notification? Check it. Get bored, switch tasks. The other operates on action outcome. It calculates the relationship between what you do and what results you get. This action outcome goal-directed mode of cognition relies on a network of brain regions working in concert. The prefrontal cortex functions as your strategic planner, keeping your goal in working memory while you evaluate different paths to reach it. The hippocampus connects past experiences with future scenarios, helping you envision the most direct route to your goal. The basal ganglia helps you select specific actions based on their predicted outcomes rather than just habitual responses. The goal-directed spectrum measures how often and precisely your brain operates in action outcome mode, evaluating actions in real time and adjusting behavior to maximize goal attainment. The number one way to work less while achieving the same or more isn't just to get good at driving yourself into flow states, it's to apply those flow states to the right activities through increasing levels of goal-directedness. Flow without goal-directedness is just speed. What we want is velocity, which is speed plus direction. Goal-directedness gives your flow state's a vector. It ensures that your highest performing mental state is actually productive because it's aligned to your long-term goals. And by the way, if you'd like a straightforward breakdown of how to immediately boost your output through goal-directedness, I put everything we've covered today into a concise guide you can use as a reference point to remember and implement all of this material. You can click the link below, we'll send it to you within seconds. The question is, how do you maximize your goal-directedness? Well, there are 3 steps you can take to dramatically increase your position on the goal-directed spectrum. Firstly, spot the causal chains. You need to identify the exact links between what you're doing now and the result you're trying to produce. It's like in the Avengers movie, Endgame. Dr. Strange uses his mystic powers to peer into alternate futures. Star-Lord asks, how many outcomes did you see? 14,605,000, he responds. Tony Stark leans forward, desperate. How many did we win? Dr. Strange pauses, then he replies, 1. Like Dr. Strange, seeing the one winning path among millions, goal-directedness is spotting the exact actions that lead to your goal. Let's say the outcome you want is E. Most of us don't stop to ask, well, what's A? What's B? What's C? What's D? But if you don't know what A is, then the first domino in the chain goes untouched. You don't know what to start with. If you don't know what B and C are, you don't know how to sequence your effort. And if you don't know what D is, you don't know how close you are to the goal eventually. So being goal-directed means spotting the sequence in advance. Let's go back to my roommate Alan for a second. The outcome he wanted was $250,000 a year. Imagine if he sat down and mapped the actual causal chain. Let's say he needed 25 clients paying $10,000 each. To land those, he needed to close 50 sales calls. To generate those calls, he needed 100 qualified leads. And to get those leads, he just needed to run one targeted outbound sequence or referral campaign, something he already had the contacts and time to do. That's the chain in Alan's case, that if he had identified would have allowed him to be more goal-directed. Now, one mistake that decreases people's ability to spot causal chains is mixing up 2 distinct categories of tasks: optimization tasks and good enough tasks. Optimization tasks require continual refinement because incremental improvements yield exponentially greater results. For example, a YouTube thumbnail that's a 9 out of 10 in terms of quality might get 50,000 views, but a thumbnail that's a 10 out of 10 might earn 500,000 or 3 million views. A key sales pitch that's nearly perfect might raise $100,000, while a flawless pitch might raise $1 million. But then there are good enough tasks where once you've hit a certain threshold, additional refinement doesn't meaningfully boost results. Going from an 8 to a 10 provides no significant gain. To make this distinction easier, remember this: most tasks are not optimization tasks. They're good enough tasks, where getting to 80% quality is enough. Going from 80% to 100% creates very little additional value. Perfection is expensive. You only want to apply perfection where it compounds. Now, how do we actually do this? Well, that brings us to operationalizing your goal-directedness. Through our research at flowstate.com across thousands of high performers and drawing from cognitive science, we've developed 3 simple systems that can help anyone achieve a high level of goal-directedness. Firstly, there's the goal stack, a visual hierarchy that reverse engineers your long-term goal into actionable weekly goals, creating clear lines of sight from what you're doing today to your long-term goals. Secondly, there's the goal flywheel, a weekly planning system that identifies and schedules your most goal-directed actions, preventing goal drift through the week by maintaining focus on true progress rather than busy work. And then there's the power down ritual, a daily 30-minute reset that ensures you're always clear on tomorrow's most important actions while creating closure for today. Here's the simplified implementation of each. Firstly, build your goal stack. Create a 1-page document where you map your vision, where you want to be, to your 5-year goal, then to your 1-year goal, quarterly goals, monthly goals, and finally weekly goals. This becomes your minute to decade alignment map, a direct line connecting your daily actions to your long-term goal. Spin your goal flywheel once weekly, typically Sunday evening. You review your goal stack, then you identify the 3 to 5 weekly actions for that coming week that would most directly advance your monthly and quarterly goals. Write these down as your goal-directed actions. For the week, a physical or digital list you can refer to whenever you feel pulled in multiple directions is what you're creating here. Schedule these actions in your calendar before anything else gets added, and then implement a power down ritual. At the end of each workday, spend 30 minutes on 3 phases. First, identify tomorrow's 1 to 3 most goal-directed actions and schedule them with clear, specific micro goals. These are targets for your attention to trigger flow state. Second, clear open loops by making quick decisions on pending items. Finally, mentally disengage from work completely to allow for recovery. This creates the separation needed for sustained peak performance. Without this structure, your brain drifts back into stimulus response mode. You start misallocating your focus and flow. And these systems have low setup barriers. The goal stack takes under 30 minutes to build. The goal flywheel requires just 15 minutes weekly. The power down ritual takes minutes daily, but saves hours of wasted effort. The final step in maximizing your goal directedness is developing the skill of strategic neglect, a concept pioneered by dear mentor of mine and incredible entrepreneur, Jonathan Cronstead. Strategic neglect is the discipline of choosing what not to do, no matter how useful, attractive, or interesting it seems. This isn't about ignoring responsibilities or being careless. It's about recognizing that any time spent on a less goal-directed action than the most goal-directed action is time stolen from a more goal-directed action that would move you further, faster to the goal. You skip a weekly meeting because the only thing on the agenda is something you already solved. You leave messages unanswered until the real work is done. Top performers aren't calmer because they care less. They're calmer because they care so precisely. As you move higher on the goal-directed spectrum, you'll always know what your goal-directed actions are, and you'll get better at ruthlessly eliminating, compressing, ignoring, or delegating everything else. That discussion about branding, that random side skill you told yourself you learned this year, everything that isn't the number one goal-directed action in any given moment is a voluntary decision to impede and delay progress toward your goal, where you are knowingly and explicitly acknowledging that by doing this less goal-directed action, I'm not going to move toward the goal that I know I want at the speed that I otherwise could. It's your missile chasing the wrong heat signature. And sometimes that's okay, but just be clear and honest with yourself that that's what's happening. Now here's a litmus test to see where you are on the goal-directed spectrum. Imagine you're at your desk, deep in your workday. Suddenly someone you respect walks in, they point at you and they demand, what is the single most goal-directed action you should be doing right now? Could you answer that question instantly with full conviction and clarity, or would you fumble? The truly goal-directed peak performer can answer this question at any moment, at any time, across multiple time intervals. It is the most top-of-mind thing in their mind. Their weekly goal-directed action and their daily clear goals rest at the top of conscious awareness. If you can't answer this question in a few seconds, then your most goal-directed action becomes obvious, which is to pause everything you're doing and figure out what your goal-directed action actually is, so you can answer that question in seconds. Being highly goal-directed means activating all 4 sub-skills of goal-directedness, reviewing your main goal first thing each morning, identifying the specific clear goals that will move you directly toward that goal, prioritizing those actions before anything else, and ruthlessly protecting your focus by strategically neglecting everything else. You'll eliminate flow misallocation from your work life completely, and you'll make progress at a pace that seems impossible to others. Now, dialing up your goal-directedness is only half the battle. In our next video, we cover how to maintain lock, how to keep your missile from drifting by prioritizing correctly and learning to strategically ignore every flare that tries to pull you off target. If you want to learn that, click the video here.